Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. This is a breakdown of the Saints Week 18 matchup, the final game of the regular season, and the final game for the New Orleans Saints for the 2022 campaign. It didn't end the way that we wanted it. We all wanted the Saints to make the playoffs, but when you deal with some of the things that the Saints have dealt with, the ups and downs throughout the games, the inability to be able to finish, is where you find yourself, ladies and gentlemen. You find yourself on the outside looking in. But that does not mean that the New Orleans Saints cannot finish the 2022 season on a high note. They have an opportunity to do so at home, taking on the Carolina Panthers, a team that has been playing inspired over the last few weeks. Interim head coach Steve Wilks has done an outstanding job getting the best out of these players. It seems like these players are really motivated and inspired to play for a guy like Steve Wilks, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be taken into consideration once the owner of the Carolina Panthers decide what direction he wants to go as a head coach. Speaking of head coach, it's been a up and down season for first-year head coach for the New Orleans Saints, Dennis Allen. A lot of individuals are very skeptical, including myself, about him as a head coach. But the New Orleans Saints have won 3 straight games in a row. And you can't just kind of sneeze at that and just look past it. They seem like they're playing really well, especially defensively. They have kept opponents under 21 points over that span and 18 points over the last 8 games, which is absolutely incredible. So you have to say that the defense is turning the corner. The offense have shown some bright spots. We've seen Alvin Kamara running the ball a little bit harder. Not the way that we would like to see Alvin Kamara play, running up the middle. Mostly we want to see him catching the ball out of the backfield with choice routes and screen plays. But it is what it is, man. And this was where we're at right now. We got 2 teams on the outside looking in and just basically playing for bragging rights. And both guys, I'm talking head coaches, need this win because it can be very, very convincing to ownership about where these guys stand as coaches. But let's go ahead and look at the tail of the tape here. We got the points per game. The Carolina Panthers average about 21. The Saints average 20. Points allowed, 22 for Carolina, 20 for the New Orleans Saints. Total yards, 327 for Carolina, 352 for the Saints. Yards passing, 200 for Carolina, 237 for the Saints. Yards rushing, 127 for Carolina, 114 for the Saints. Yards allowed, 366 for Carolina, 338 for the New Orleans Saints. Pass yards allowed, 245 for Carolina, 210 for the Saints. Rush yards allowed, 121 for Carolina, 127 for the New Orleans Saints. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, and the Saints are a 3.5-point favorite, if that means anything. Well, what are the keys to victory for the New Orleans Saints? It's very, very simple. You got to be able to run the football. Now, I understand that if you listen to those statistics, it says that the rushing yards allowed are a slight bit less than the New Orleans Saints allow if you're looking at the Carolina Panthers. But over the last few games, they have been susceptible to the run. So I think that the Saints need to utilize all their running backs in the backfield. Also, You can get opportunities maybe at some of these passing plays, especially since star cornerback of the Carolina Panthers, J.C. Horn, is not going to be playing in this game. I mean, you still got C.J. Henderson. You still got some talented guys out there in the secondary that can make some plays. But they did get torched last week. Now, I understand that it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you got Tom Brady, and you got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, seeming like he's coming back on, seeming like he's turned the corner since that injury to his hamstring and his ACL. And then you have Mike Evans out there going for over 200 yards. I mean, basically torching these boys. Now, I understand that Andy Dalton is in no way, shape, or form Tom Brady, but, you can make some plays with these talented wide receivers you have. Chris Olave caught passes for 180-plus yards last time he played against Carolina. Now, you could say that was in garbage time. The game was a little bit out of hand, and you had Jameis Winston throwing that ball down the field trying to make plays, and Chris Olave was on the receiving end of that. But you have to admit he was on the receiving end of those plays. So regardless of how you want to slice it, cut it, divide it, he still put up a great football game. And then you have Rashid Shaheed, a guy who has been coming on over the last couple of weeks. You have to say the future is extremely bright for the New Orleans Saints, in spite of some of the things that we heard about, Michael Thomas restructuring his contract and what that can mean to his future. But you have two really talented young guys that can make plays, and I think the Saints need to utilize them. Especially if you start setting up the run, that can open up the play action, and it can make things a little bit easier for for quarterback Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton for the last couple of weeks has not found himself throwing a passing touchdown. Now you can say based on the elements in Cleveland, and also just some of the plays that he made last week. I mean, he was really hot. He was willing and dealing. I want to say he went like 12 for 12 or something like that before the interception. But he did open up opportunities for guys to make plays, and he put the ball in the right spots. It would be nice to see him put the ball into the end zone. As far as the offensive line, I think they played really well last week, in spite of the fact that they lost a couple guys on the offensive line. Yeah, Ryan Ramczyk on the bike. He was dealing with that injury. I don't know if he's going to be able to play today. I think his status is indeed questionable. But that means that Landon Young probably going to be taking his place. And I mean, he was kind of getting worked a little bit, but hopefully he can kind of right the ship and play a little bit better if his number is indeed called. Trevor Penning played really well in opportunities that were presented to him. I don't think the New Orleans Saints are going to give you a heavy dose of Trevor Penning no matter what the situation is. I think the Saints want to kind of slowly bring him into what they're actually doing. And I think you're going to get a larger sample size of who Trevor Penning is in the 2023 season. As far as defensively for the New Orleans Saints, look, you got to be able to get pressure on Sam Darnold. Look, I know Sam Darnold is in everybody's acquired taste, but he did throw for over 300 yards last week, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, probably one of his best performances in the Carolina Panthers uniform as far as I can remember. And then you also have Foreman out there, the running back, who is a punishing, bruising running back who averages about 4.4 yards a carry. So you definitely want to try to neutralize him. And also CJ Moore, man, who has really been coming on. I think he had 10 targets last week. He had 6 catches, over 100 yards, and he has scored a touchdown in the last 3 games, which is absolutely impressive. Look, I like CJ Moore a lot. He isn't a guy that really shows that much emotion. The dude just goes out there and does his job. I mean, most I ever seen him show emotion was that egregious call when they took his helmet off and they called a flag on him. But I mean, justifiably so. I mean, you catch a pass in that particular moment. I can't blame him for that. But I think that he's a really good wide receiver, and it's probably best that you actually have your best cornerback in Marshawn Lattimore being able to guard him. And we also heard the news that Paulson Adebo, dealing with a hamstring, won't be playing in this game. So that means Alontae Taylor would be thrust back into the lineup. It's just ridiculous, the fact that he didn't play last week at all. Like, that's just absolutely dumb, right? This dude has been a bright spot in the secondary, and you can arguably say that he played better at corner than Paulson Adebo. I'm not saying that you should have got rid of Paulson Adebo last week, but I think you could have found some action for Alontae Taylor. But nonetheless, Alontae Taylor will be in the lineup And it should be interesting to see Marshawn Lattimore on one side, Alontae Taylor on another, because this could be like a foreshadowing of what's to come as far as the future of New Orleans Saints, especially going into 2023. The linebackers in New Orleans Saints have been playing absolutely outstanding. I mean, you got Caden Ellis, who is in a contract year. You definitely know he's playing with empty pockets, and he wants to show that he can be a difference maker. Rather the Saints resign him or he goes somewhere else. I can't believe I'm saying he's going somewhere else, because the Saints, this should be a no-brainer. You need to sign this guy back. You also have P. Warner, who has been, coming on as of late. I mean, he had that injury, and he was kind of slowly working his way back. He's still making plays, but you can start to really see him actually being a difference maker the way he was when the season first started. And also Demario Davis being voted as the lone Pro Bowler for the New Orleans Saints this season. He's been playing good as well. As far as the defensive line is concerned of the New Orleans Saints, look, they had 6 sacks last week. That's the direction that you want to go in. Cam Jordan had 3 of those. We know that Cam Jordan surpassed Ricky Jackson to be the all-time leader in sacks. I don't know if this is the last game that Cam Jordan is going to be in a Saints uniform. I know this sounds crazy to say, but look, the way the Saints are going right now, it seems like to me, even though they don't want to admit this, it's a little bit of a rebuild. And I think that everybody could possibly be on the chopping block to be considered maybe as a trade, via trade, or maybe allowing those guys to go somewhere where they can, win, maybe win and get an opportunity to, try for a championship. And Cam Jordan can be one of those guys, and also, you got Marcus Davenport, his future as a New Orleans Saint is in jeopardy. You got a couple more guys that are going to be unrestricted free agents like Shy Tuttle. So a lot of these guys have something to prove today, and they're going to have to be able to make some noise, especially going into the offseason and being able to maybe re-sign with the New Orleans Saints or go somewhere else. But you got to be able to get pressure on Sam Darnold. We know that if you put pressure in his face, it can rattle him. It can cause him to make mistakes. He can throw the ball to the other team. We all know that, even though he played impressive last week. So I think the Saints need to continue to put pressure on Sam Darnold to make him a little bit confused. And we know that the Saints can do that. And we also know that the Saints can make guys that are known for just kind of standing in the pocket trying to make plays. We know that they can make it tough on a lot of these guys. So who do I think is going to win this football game? Well, I think the New Orleans Saints are going to win this football game. I think it's the final game of the season. I think that a lot of guys are going to be inspired. I think that, you're probably going to see some plays that you probably didn't see all season long. I think both teams are just going to go out there, give it their all. They're going to have fun. I think they're going to try to just be as creative as possible, because once again, a lot of these guys they're auditioning. They're auditioning for, what the future is going to hold, like rather a team is going to re-sign them or, even for another team. You don't want to put bad stuff on tape, especially towards the last game of the season, because, teams are going to be looking at that. They're going to wonder if you're like phoning it in, if your motor not running too hot, or, you're basically in your mind, you're saying Cancun on 3 because the season technically is over. Well, it is over once all this is all said and done. So you got to go out there. You got to put your best foot forward. You got to continue to grind. You got to continue to shine. And that's what these guys got to do. So I just think that the Saints are going to make the plays. I think that this game is going to be close. It's always fun when the Carolina Panthers come to the Superdome. Always something exciting happens. Always come down to a final possession, a missed field goal. I think this is going to be an edge of the seat type game. And I think that both teams are going to bring it because they have something to play for, even though they're not going to be in the postseason. But I would love to hear from you. What do you all think about the Saints Week 18 matchup? What do you think the keys to victory are? Comment down below. Like and share this video. This has been the State of the Saints podcast. Also, previous episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM. Follow the State of the Saints podcast on Facebook.com. Search the State of the Saints podcast. Also, you can check me out on Twitter at TJAY Jones 8. Till next time, all I got to say is